I'll never forget the day Miss Malowick, my 11th grade English teacher, asked me, "Joaquin, what's your purpose?" And it took me years to fully find an answer for that. It took a student raising their hand in my classroom to ask me the question, "Mr. Z, why do you speak? Why do you teach?" And I think the best answer for why I teach is to simply tell you who I teach. On the first row in the first desk sits John. He's deaf. He's just created a website displaying the antique radios he restores. I remember I asked him once, "John, why do you do this?" He just smiled at me and signed, "Just because something is silent doesn't mean it can never be heard." He'll never know how much his hands remind me of my grandfather's voice. On the fifth row in the first desk sits Eric. For his essay on who he hopes to be like when he grows up someday, he writes about his 5-year-old sister who he caught coloring in the family Bible that's over 100 years old. "Why did you do that?" he asked. "Because there are no pictures of God in the God book." Third row, 3 seats back, sits Annika. Quietest girl in all the 11th grade, but she overcomes her shyness one bright and shining moment, just long enough to raise her hand in class one day and say, "Mr. Z, isn't a pearl made by a single grain of sand that mistakenly finds its way into an oyster? And wasn't Hester's daughter Pearl born out of wedlock? Both are beautiful, pure and unspoiled. So perhaps perfection can come from flaw." She said this to me. Do you know how many poets there are in the average high school in the world? Too many to count. And then that brings me to Aaron. Aaron, who sits in the last row on the last desk. Aaron, who drapes himself in black every day like a blind man walking through an abandoned warehouse at the death hour of a moonless night looking for a cat the color of ebony that's not there, never was there. For his journal topic on what he would say to the entire world if they were forced to listen to him if only for a moment, he writes simply 5 words. "Why don't you see me?" So I make it a point every day to put my hand on his shoulder and look him straight in the bangs that hang over eyes the color of sky and ask him, "How are you today, Aaron?" Because no young person should have to ask to be seen, but after all this, the question lingers, why do I speak? Why do I teach? I guess I teach for the deaf student who will someday write a symphony, or the gay student who stands defiantly in the face of ignorance. I teach for my students that shine like stars, but more importantly, I teach for the ones that don't. Because if you take the time to look beyond the facade of black, you just might find a young person sitting in the back of a classroom with eyes the color of sky, who more than anything just needs to be seen. What's my purpose? I travel around this country like Johnny Apple Sonnet, and I teach young people how to write poems that can change their lives, how to write a scholarship application essay that can save their lives. I teach young people that together we can right the wrongs of the world.